Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today I am talking about Rise of the Planet of the Apes. I'm going to be completely honest, when this film came out originally in 2011, I had no interest in seeing it. I wasn't a huge diehard fan of the original, so I wasn't like, they're going to ruin this movie that is so perfect and everything with this prequel story that we don't need to see because we already know, spoilers, that the apes take over the world. Why do we need to see that? So I just had that mindset, and I just avoided it. Then a little while later, I started asking myself this question: how did the apes take over the world, and why did they take over the world? And so I said, okay, you know what? I'll go check it out. And I heard some great things about War for the Planet of the Apes, film I will talk about later. And so I said, sure. So this last month, I have watched those films, the entire Rise, Dawn, War trilogy. And I gotta say, Rise of the Planet of the Apes really surprised me, guys. This was actually a very entertaining movie. I was very impressed from start to finish with a lot of stuff that they could actually tell. And, okay, first of all, I better just say what I didn't like right off the bat, because there's only one big thing. I really didn't like the human characters. That's really it. I didn't care for any of the humans in this movie. James Franco's scientist who's trying to find a cure for Alzheimer's, which is a noble cause, but I don't know. His character just was not given much outside of, I want to find this cure. I'm going to do anything to do it. He's just this stereotypical, I'm a scientist who's going to do whatever I can and not let the system shut me down. And then there's the guy from the system. He's like, I'm going to shut you down. And Franco's like, drat. So I'm going to secretly take an ape away. And then it's not really interesting. You've seen it in a billion other science fiction films and a billion other movies that talk about how the establishment brings it down. I'm going to say the thing that I love most about this movie is the apes. They're the things that I didn't know how if I was going to like them, and I loved them. I love how the apes are done with the motion capture in this film. It's really impressive. I mean, you can kind of tell they're really artificial in this movie, but there's a certain level of believability with them. They do a very good job at not making the actors that are in the motion capture show off. Like, it's like, we're apes. Like, no, they have care in this project. And you can tell the director really wanted to make sure that the apes were handled with care as well as the actors. Now, this film gets really good around the time when we find out that Caesar, this baby that is picked up in the test chambers, and he's like the offspring of one of the apes who is killed, who was like being experimented on with the serum that they have. And so he has some of the serum in his blood. And what's really cool is that serum gives him this heightened sense of abilities. He's smarter, like naturally smarter than any other ape. He can pick up on sign language faster than others. He can complete this kind of puzzle and the perfect moves when most apes couldn't do this when they were older. Like, he's like a child and he can do puzzles no problem. He can communicate through sign language very well. And he's performed fantastically by Andy Serkis. This man does some amazing work with his character, not just as presenting, but as being this character. There's a lot of time spent with Caesar in some emotional moments. Like, as the film progresses, Caesar goes through some emotional moments in this movie and emotional milestones. And when any other film would just be like, oh, feel for this character, based on the situation, and the situation's rough, Andy Serkis doesn't make the character so innocent, I will say. He makes him a character who's defiant, who's actually kind of a person, while the rest of these human characters are just kind of basic people, like basic stereotypes and, characters you've seen a billion times. Caesar is nothing like that. He's complicated. He's more developed. And the apes kind of go in the same way. They're kind of simple, but then they develop later on. And it's very impressive to see that in this movie that I honestly didn't have any interest in it. So watching these characters develop, the apes, is what I wanted to see. Then there's a moment in this movie they could have really screwed it up. There's a reference to the original in this film, And when they did it, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's one of those human characters, and I'm just like, I hate you not because I'm supposed to, but because you're just written so poorly and so generically. And they do this reference, and at first I'm like, oh god, and then split second later, I went like this. I was like, and I grab the remote and I go back and I watch it 5 more times because it's a moment that not only makes you just feel for this character, it's an emotional moment. You also say to yourself, "Oh my gosh, yes, yes!" Like you just like want to get up in your seat and yell. I guess it's a wonderful scene, and the final moments of this movie are really both emotional and very action packed. It's not a movie, it's a very tense movie. It's not one that you know how it's going to go. Even if you know the original, I won't ruin this for anybody. I'll first give my rating, and then I will talk about the end, because it doesn't go the way you expect. This is a movie that actually defies expectations, which is actually something I admire. It's not a movie that, says we're going to take the easy route in this. We're not going to try to make this a stupid digitalized prequel. We're going to actually do this, and we care about this source material. We want this to elevate the original. And that's what the best prequels do. Is this origin story the best? I wouldn't say that. I mean, the motion capture is really impressive. It's not amazing. And the human situations, what they go through is just kind of like, what's going to happen. That's the expectations that you knew was going to happen the minute you watch this movie. When you know one character is sick, you're like, oh boy, here. Well, one at least. There's another character that is surprising, but another character you see, you're just like, okay. Another one, all right, yeah, okay, you want to be the establishment character, whatever, we'll let you be that character. So, the humans, again, the biggest problem with this movie, but it's made up for with the amazing performance by Andy Serkis and all of the motion capture apes. And it's visually pretty impressive with some of the effects. The other effects aren't really all too well polished, but it's really impressive. And I will say this is a really good introduction. So, as a film, 3.5 out of 5. It's a really, really good introduction as a prequel. Personally, I would say this is a movie you could own. I don't think you need to, but you could definitely see it in theaters. It's a movie that is really, really impressive to watch, and it defied my expectations no problem. Now I'm going to be talking about the ending and how I felt about it. For those of you people that saw this film, you know that James Franco gets really desperate with the Alzheimer's cure, so he doubles up and he tries to put more and more into it and tries to inject it into an ape, and it exposes to this one person, and they get sick, and then he tries to run away and he tries to hide, and then he dies, but not before he coughs on this one person, who's a character that I hated throughout the entire film. And then it turns out that person is a pilot who goes into an airport full of people coughing, sneezing, because he's a jerk and not covering his mouth. And it goes to this kind of like, if you've ever played the game Plague Inc. on the phone, you see he's flying a plane and all of a sudden it's infecting country after country. And I went, oh my gosh. And I saw this at 1 o'clock in the morning. I was tired. I didn't really want to do anything else. And I saw this scene and I'm like, right there. That's how it happens. And it answered the question without telling me. It shows me visually how it happened. And that is what I wanted to see. I wanted to see how the apes took over. And it's not putting the apes in a negative spin. It puts the humans in a negative spin. How even if we try to help the world, we are going to, if we try to play God and try to save people from these diseases in an unnatural way, we could even cause the destruction of mankind. And to me, with the 1960s version, it's like nuclear war destroyed us and we destroyed the world. This asks a bigger question. If it's like, was it nuclear war? Or was it us trying to be, trying to save people and trying to help people? That's much more horrifying than, I think, nuclear holocaust. It's like, if we're going to kill ourselves and our species because we want to try to help each other, then what does that say about what we should do? It's a question I asked myself, and I was like, oh my gosh, this movie's making me think. And for that reason, this is one of my favorite endings in a movie, at least credit scenes in a movie. And that made the film a lot better to me. That made up for some of the characters. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Tell me what you think about this film. It definitely defied my expectations and made me appreciate prequels a lot more. Like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And as always, guys, take care.